This segment is about ideas for better government. It includes a section on redistricting, truthfulness ratings, taking the profit out of buying politicians, and putting term limits on the Supreme Court. Redistricting has caused a lot of problems, and it's been controlled by the party in power, which is a positive feedback loop, like the howl on a speaker system when somebody carries a microphone in front of a speaker. We need a different system. And as a result of the gerrymandering, the House has been polarized because nobody needs to compromise to get elected in their own district. So we need competitive races where in order to get a majority to win, you need to make compromises to win a majority. So one of the things we need is an independent redistricting commission that's a balance between the interests of the different parties. California has come up with a model that seems like a good idea to me. The idea uses commissioners taken from a pool of volunteers, and then those as the people are selected from that pool, each side gets to reject them, a certain number of them, and it's a lot like a jury selection. And then by the time you get down to you get a majority of the commissioners selected, then the rest of them are just chosen from that pool by chance. This allows for a independent redistricting that would balance the power in Congress and hopefully make congressional elected officials much more amenable to compromise. For me, one of the biggest problems with the last election was the truthfulness was a casualty. We even call it post-truth politics. That worries me a lot because truthfulness matters to me. And one of the things we observed was that if somebody said something or tweeted something, the news media would report it many times, not as fact, but just that the person said it. The problem with repeating things is that they become fact in the public's mind once they've heard it often enough. So I think we need something to counteract that. One of the things we've seen is in movies is to let people know the content ahead of time so they can decide whether they want to watch a movie. So I propose we create a rating system for political advertisements and news coverage of political events that's similar to what we have with the movie rating system, except it would rate the truthfulness. We could use some of the existing groups like PolitiFact and to come up with this sort of system. That way, whenever you saw an ad or you saw a news segment that was reporting something that somebody said, there would be a notice right up there whether or not this was partially or even completely false. I'm in favor of using economic incentives to solve problems and to give people either take motive away or give the motive. So I propose that we reduce the opportunities for companies to buy influence. And the government controls or exerts control two ways. One is through regulations where something is required and if people don't do it, there's a penalty. The other is an incentive by cutting taxes if the people do what you want. Sort of a carrot and stick approach. However, this has backfired. People have found that corporations have found that it's cheaper to buy a politician than it is to pay the tax. So we need to change that. So I'm talking about changing some of the corporate tax structures. My plan is to eliminate almost all tax incentives so that the corporations can't buy a politician and get a special tax break. So there's no money in it for them to buy the politician for that reason. To balance this elimination of tax breaks, I think we need to start by lowering corporate taxes from 39%, which is the highest of any developed country in the world, down to about 30%, which is comparable to the other G8 countries. the other large industrial countries. That will incentivize companies to declare their profits in the United States and pay United States taxes. So 30% of something is better than 39% of nothing. We'd have to make some allowances, things like equipment depreciation and tax deferments rather than tax benefits for things like retirement accounts would still be allowed. We've recently seen some of the disgraceful efforts on part of Congress regarding Supreme Court nominees. And so some of the problems we've seen are the party in power may hold up an election or may hold up an appointment by a president of the other party indefinitely. Now that precedent has been set, there's no end in sight. So I think we need to make some changes to the way the Supreme Court's nominated, but we still need to get the best qualified people. One of the things we've seen is that since there are lifetime appointments, people get there's a tendency to appoint younger justices, not necessarily the best in their field. So, and there's also a problem of having the court go without a majority, without an odd number for a period of time. So I propose, this isn't my proposal, I heard it from somebody else, but that we put term limits on members of the Supreme Court of 18 years. That's still quite a long time. It's much longer than the presidential term of whoever appointed them. So they would still essentially have the independence of a lifetime commitment, especially if they get appointed in their mid-60s. The appointments would rotate so that there would be a new appointment every 2 years. That way, any sitting president would have 2 appointments per 4-year term. So the election of the president would still have a significant impact on the balance of the court, but it would be predictable and something that people wouldn't need to fight over. Now, to prevent this delay tactic, I suggest that the way we do it is the president offers 3 ranked candidates to the Senate, and the Senate must pick one within 4 months, or the top candidate gets the job. So there isn't this hassle. It's the Senate's job to advise and consent, not to block until the next election. There are more topics on this subject on my channel on YouTube, or you can go to a menu at my website at pctraining.net/vision.htm.